We just saw Dracula Untold, and on this show I take my friends, we go see a movie, we have a review in the car, and then we have a discussion. The review part is spoiler-free, so if you're on the fence and trying to decide if you want to see this movie, watch the first part. If you've already seen the movie, or don't care to, and just want to know everything that we think, watch the discussion part, because we may get into spoilers during that section. So, from the trailers, I thought this looked like 300 with vampires. It's not quite 300 with vampires. It's a little closer to Lord of the Rings with vampires. The production values are really, really good. It's PG-13, which makes it a little bit more like Lord of the Rings as well. They do a much better job of telling, storytelling, giving us lots of characters. And I think the thing that I can say best in its favor is that I've never seen anyone actually tell the Vlad the Impaler story. It's always been used as a flashback in someone doing an adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's like, this is where he originally came from, but they maybe give him 5 or 10 minutes of screen time, and then they skip forward to, either the actual timeline of the Bram Stoker story, or they put it in modern times, and it's, the same characters as are in the novel. So from that perspective, I really liked it. It really had a feel of a modern day retelling of sort of this mythic story, kind of like the treatment that Hercules got earlier this year, but with less of a comedic tone than that movie had. And overall, it was just really well done. I think if you're into sort of the sexy vampire thing, if that's what you're looking for, you'll be disappointed. This movie's not that. It's pretty action heavy, but because of the rating and because of how much it's really about the origin story of Dracula and the origin story told about Vlad the Impaler, it's much more of, much more of a character-driven story than it is an action-driven story. You're not thinking about battles or, meeting characters that are just going to die, or, this general is wrong all the time and he dies, or any of that kind of stuff. So, from that perspective, I really enjoyed it. I really thought it was neat. Did we need this movie? No. Absolutely not. It was not a movie I was dying to see. But like I said,
all Dracula fans are hissing at you.
Anytime I see a Dracula adaptation, I always do kind of wish that they spend more time with the original story, the Vlad the Impaler story. And I did like that they fleshed that out in this. So from that perspective, I did enjoy the movie. So, what did you guys think?
Yeah, I overall pretty well enjoyed it. I think Dale covered pretty much all of the high points. I did like that the action was kind of understated when it happened. It was kind of quick, which was fine, especially for a Dracula movie. I did really enjoy the setup to all the Vlad the Impaler stuff, because I'm not necessarily familiar with any of those legends, or Bram Stoker's version, or any of that. So I wasn't really expecting all of that. So it was nice not to just jump into, here's a guy that's doing bad stuff for good reasons, which is kind of the whole point of the movie anyway. Yeah, overall, I definitely enjoyed it. I'm kind of a sucker for any sort of twist on any kind of like iconic movies like that. I was a huge fan of Wicked, so anytime you kind of take a big character like that and kind of do something different,
spin it differently.
Yeah, I'm all in for that.
Right on.
I thought it was going to be all style, no substance, but there's actually substance, and it's decently written.
Surprising, isn't it?
I'm surprised, actually. Vampires are hot right now. What can I say? There was the Dracula TV show that was on that was actually really good, shockingly as well. I don't know if that's coming back, but this sets itself up pretty nicely to do some stuff. I felt like there was some weird eye-rolling moments at times, but sure, I can forgive that. It's if you're looking at the level of like what kind of action movies came out this summer, which have all been overall pretty well. Yeah, this is comparable.
Yeah.
And I think when you kind of take it into context too, because they really did a good job making him seem a little bit more human than more of a killer in this movie for the section where they picked it up. Cinematically, I thought the special effects were good, but it was really reminiscent of Lord of the Rings, kind of like you say.
Yeah.
But as far as the action scenes, it was like everybody was putting it in fast forward, and it was kind of a blur at times, and that was part of the effects, I'm sure. But it kind of was like, what just happened? How many did he kill? 2 people or 200 people? What just happened? So yeah, it moved fairly quickly in parts like that, which was okay for the length of the movie. I mean, really, it was what, an hour and a half? Movie.
Yeah, just an average movie length.
Yeah, wasn't a bad movie length at all. You didn't feel uncomfortable. There didn't seem to be any real slow moments in the actual movie at all. It kind of moved right along, and then it really went into fast forward.
Yeah, and we'll get into that because the ending's something I definitely want to talk about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's our quick version of the review. If it sounds like something that you want to see, don't let us spoil any of the stuff that we're going to talk about here in the discussion part. And if you've already seen it, you probably know some of what we're going to talk about because there are some things that are sort of odd. You brought up some of the like eye-rolling kind of stuff. Aaron mentioned to me, Aaron actually went and saw this with us as well, but there just wasn't room in the car, so he went back to his place after the movie, and he mentioned something about how the movie established a rule that if you drink the blood of the person who's the like demon head or the vampire or whatever, that you become the vampire. So his logic was that the first guy that he fed should have turned into Dracula, and I'm like, I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, I think you can.
Yeah, well, that wasn't the sense of the logic I got.
I think
either.
you can. I think you can twist the arm a little bit and say, you got to do it in the cave, out of somebody's head, and Charles Dance has to be present. Like, there's a bunch of.
Well,
things
I think it was more that Charles Dance was the Ur vampire. He was number one. He was the first.
Right.
So those rules are a little bit different.
Yeah, there wasn't hundreds of vampires in this, and one thing that I think they lost touch with was that in most of these vampire movies that we see, the head always has control over his subjects, where here he did not.
And that was interesting.
Yeah.
It led to cool places.
I also liked that they didn't sit there and give you all the rules of vampires.
No, that's probably good.
Yeah,
I'm really happy they didn't do that. They didn't sit there and tell you.
I felt like they got to play with them a little bit. Like I kind of liked it took me a second to get into it in the scene where he's fighting with the Sultan, but then I was like, you know what? I actually kind of dig this. Like the silver's weakening him, it's making him a lot weaker, and he's on the even terms.
Right, and that was a cool idea.
I kind of liked the way they did that.
The only thing they really went into any explanation about what vampires are was the monk at the very beginning was kind of showing you what. Because they encountered Charles Dance earlier, and they went to the monk, and they were like, what the hell was that? And it's like, well, it sounds like this guy, and this is how he came to be, and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And then he goes and he becomes... So, Vlad the Impaler is a historical figure. He actually exists.
Right.
They just used him as a... They sort of retconned his history into becoming, the origin of Dracula.
Right.
And I think that they didn't feel like taking a whole lot, like, not the movie, but like other fiction writers haven't really spent a lot of time changing Vlad the Impaler over to something else. It's always been sort of told as he was this kind of monstrous person, truly evil person, and he became cursed. I believe because he killed his wife, is the way the original legend goes, is how he becomes Dracula, is that he killed his wife by being too, power hungry or something like that.
I thought it was the whole Bram Stoker's he cursed God and stabbed at the Christ figure or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And now I was trying to think of the actual Dracula movie where he was Judas, where he betrayed Jesus, and then
that was Dracula 2000.
Yeah.
Was that Dracula 2000?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's other origin stories and all that. So again, not to like harp on this over and over again, but I love that they used Vlad the Impaler, and I love that they spent time developing him. What I wasn't really happy with was that the ending goes like all Battlestar Galactica on us and just Jump 600 years into the future.
Like time zone.
yeah.
That was
And
weird.
not only is it now present day, but he runs into his reincarnated wife, who is Mina, which is what happens in the Bram Stoker novel. So,
Right.
if we get a sequel, we're going to get
Modern Bram Stoker's Dracula.
yes, modernized Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I'm
That's
hesitant.
interesting.
Well,
I'm hesitant about, and the only reason I'm hesitant about it is that I think the worst part about the Bram Stoker story, the hardest thing about the adaptations, is that the book is super slow. It's not what you would call like a modern horror classic. It is more of a suspense story. It's more of a like Wuthering Heights with vampires kind of romance story.
Right.
And so if they somehow keep this same level of storytelling and action movie, if they somehow manage to pull that off,
maybe.
Yeah, or they
it might work.
It could
Or,
be.
or maybe they could just go an entirely weird direction if they. I mean, who knows?
Well, it almost seems like they're setting it up for a lot of flashbacks. You know, so he's gonna be, possibly going back, showing different phases of his life, looking for Mina, and
The only thing that the only reason I was like, I'll be in for part 2 of this is they made a point of showing that Charles Dance is going to be part of it.
I'll watch
Yeah.
Charles
If he's
Dance.
part of it, yeah, sure, absolutely.
yeah.
I'll check that out for sure.
And this isn't the first time that people have been like, hey, Dracula in the present would be cool. The most recent Castlevania game does that. So
Yep.
I think there's probably some people being mildly inspired by what they've seen elsewhere. Possibly.
Yeah, and it can work. It's just I don't know. I think it needs like more transition, but maybe that's what Act 1 of the next movie is going to be.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it was a really jarring jump. Like at first, I did it. Okay, they're just saying that he's been around forever, blah 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 blah.
Right.
But then they get into the Mina thing, and I was like, oh, well, that's a little more weird. Like I kind of thought they were just going to end it with, okay, well, Vlad exists now.
Yeah,
Still
'cause
alive.
if they follow the actual Bram Stoker story, he should die in Bram Stoker's Dracula, which means he shouldn't be alive in modern times. So that was the first thing that came into my head when they showed him, was that, oh, so he survives to present day. Now anything you show me from the past, I just know that he's going to be fine. Like I don't ever need to have concern for him at all.
But that frees you to make any other kind of storytelling if you want. If you do want to show what happens in between.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, exactly.
As long as it's not the focus of it, then it would be pretty
Well,
uninteresting.
they take a big risk making that big of a leap right now. So it does, you're 50-50 at the end. Either this is going to be a really good sequel, or it's going to be a total leap of, hey, he just came through Stargate in we're 2015.
And the other reason that that's so jarring is that who's the narrator of the movie?
The son.
The sun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
Yeah, that was weird too.
Does that mean the son's going to be a vampire and immortal, and he's going to be
Spell his name backwards.
He's Alucard. Good old Alucard's going to show up.
This just is a Castlevania movie, isn't this?
That's right.
This really is.
That's funny.
It's not Lords of Shadow though.
No.
I mean, he didn't start out as a Belmont that became infected, but
Right.
in a lot of other ways, yeah, it is kind of Castlevania-esque. And then they have Castle Dracula,
Yeah.
which gets demolished, and then they leave it. They're like,
Yeah.
and Rebel.
we're going to the monastery.
Yeah.
Much safer there.
Obviously.
Let's try to get the monks' home destroyed while we're at it. Let's bring the war to the monks.
Bring me some women. I want to impale her.
Yes.
I gotta kind of wonder if if our jeez if Vlad is
I hate people.
if Vlad is sitting there being a really good war chief, he knows the weaknesses of his. He knows
It's locked, you jackass.
if he knows the weaknesses of his castle, why would he have his castle there and be that weak to start
right,
with?
right.
Would be the big question in my mind.
Well, chances are it's been there for a long time because we know that
was
his
inherited.
dad was a prince that before
Okay.
him.
Yeah.
Because that's why he was.
So
given
where's
it.
where's the story, which is probably not near as interesting, but they started off as these guys were slaves of the Turks, and they taught them how to basically be warriors. But I never hear a story about Dracula's father, ever.
I mean, they only mentioned him in passing a couple times, just that he gave him up as a hostage.
Right.
Well, and
right.
I think that problem always happens with this kind of story, right? Like, what, like they sort of explain what happened to Charles Dance, but they don't show you that story happening. They they tell you what happened to him.
He was cursed.
They've got like, you know, the book from the Grimm TV show with like the picture of him. It's like, oh yeah, it's that guy, and
Yeah.
you know, one of our ancestors came across him, and he was quite a fight, but we got away and drew a picture of him. Whatever.
Oh, you know, another thing that was kind of jarring is, you know, at the end when he's making his little army of vampire minions, and like, you know, okay, he's the protagonist and he's got this awesome willpower and he's still being a good guy, but like all of a sudden everybody he just turns into an asshole at the end. Like the old wizened friend or whatever that was hobbling around for the whole movie, like now all of a sudden he's this huge vampire dick, and it's like, okay, well, let's kill your kid now.
Well, that was
which was just kind of weird.
Wasn't that your point earlier that like, or yours, that like normally when Dracula turns people, he has control over them?
Right. Yeah. That was.
And in this, like, he was turning people, and they were just sort of like, oh yeah,
they all just kind of went nuts.
Yeah, it's a rabbit.
Let's be vampires.
I think he was more mentally prepared for it, where they just got, you know, instant vampire fame and phobia. And
let's be vampire cops.
I'd watch that.
I think that's the funniest joke of Let's Be Vampire Cops is just the title.
Yeah.
Because based on Let's Be Cops, that's the funniest part about it, is what it's called. They like took the premise and then just like
made them vampires.
Smashed it.
Fumbled.
Yeah. Crushed it in their tiny little hands.
Well, thanks for watching. That's our review of Dracula Untold. If you like the way we do these reviews, please like the video, subscribe, it helps us out, and check out all the written and video reviews over at DaleMaxfield.com. Thanks for watching.